Oneofus.net here at South by Southwest 2014, and this is like day 305. I don't know. The point is, we are sitting here with Mr. Simon Barrett, who is the writer of this year's film, The Guest. You may also recognize his work, films like You're Next and A Horrible Way to Die. And Simon, do you want to talk a little bit about The Guest?
No, I cannot. We are trying to do anti-promotion for The Guest until it comes out, so we're not doing any interviews or speaking about it at all.
So is it like reverse psychology? Don't see The Guest.
Well, you know what? In this day and age where everyone just like over-promotes their things, it's like, here's a new shot of like Dan Stevens sneakers on set, and it's like, by the time the movie comes out, you're sick of it. So we're going to do something different with The Guest.
All right.
We're not going to talk about it until it's ready to be released from now on.
This is going to be awkward.
Do you have another idea, Brian? What else can we talk about?
You know what? I think in that case, if we really can't talk about the movie that you have this year at South by, maybe we should just talk about movies in general, and the movies specifically that have inspired you. So what genre films do you remember growing up that really inspired you as a filmmaker?
You know, I'm an enormous fan of the film Ernest Goes to Jail. And I'm not...
You didn't think Summer Camp was better?
No, Ernest Goes to Camp is not better.
Empire Strikes Back.
Well, Ernest Goes to Jail does have that great moment where he's playing two different characters. He's playing the hero and the villain.
Yes.
You really get a sense of Jim Varney's range in that film.
But it's not just that. The cinematography in that movie is actually unbelievable. They do like all this crazy like Sam Raimi like camera work because he, at a certain point in the film, gravity stops affecting him and he's just flying everywhere. And as a kid, it just blew me away. And it was like one of the first movies I watched again and again and again, and actually deconstructed camera work and editing. Because I'd be like, how are they making it look like Ernest is magnetic in this like one scene?
I can't believe I find myself in total agreement with that. But they're like all the shots in the prison have this like delightful purple and red. It's very playful and like
it's really well lit.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's better than it has any right to be.
Yeah.
And it's available on Blu-ray. Like it was one of the first Blu-rays I bought. Actually, the first 3 Blu-rays I bought were the Japanese film Confessions, and then I bought Face Off.
Yes.
Face Off, sure, yeah.
Which is a big influence on The Guest. And then I bought Ernest Goes to Jail.
I say one of my favorite action movie sequences of all time is in Face Off, where they face each other with a mirror between them, so they actually see the reflections of the people in their mind they're shooting at.
I know.
So brilliant.
I know. It's poetry. Adam and I first bonded, when we first met back in 2003 on the set of a film I wrote called Dead Birds. Literally the first thing, Adam and he was with his screenwriter for his film Homesick, E.L. Katz, who did Cheap Thrills.
Oh yeah, of course.
And they came to set and we were hanging out, and like the first thing they asked me was like, "What's your favorite movie?" At the time, it was The Killer. John Woo's The Killer, and it was also Adam's favorite movie at that time. Since then, you watch The Killer like a few more times, and you start to realize that it's kind of like held together with like Scotch tape and glue, and like it doesn't quite work as well as it does in your mind, like in your memories. But so does, by the way, like all my favorite films, like Peter Jackson's first few films are so incredible, and then you see them now and you're like, he's just tilting the camera. They're not really on a cliff. but you see that like how he used that, and Evil Dead 2 was one that I really studied, Reanimator as well. But yeah, like the
not just for naked Barbara Crampton.
No, the performances in that movie are extraordinary. I mean, like everyone pays so much attention to what Jeffrey Combs is doing, and Bruce Abbott is very good, and the actor David Hill, I believe is the name, who passed away. I hope so. I hope I didn't just butcher that.
We'll look that up.
Okay. But everyone kind of ignores how good Barbara's work is. But that movie has very like difficult Shakespearean like declarative dialogue. Like it's even little things like Mr. West, I suggest you get yourself a pen. Like it's just like really the way people speak in that movie is so absurdly stylized.
Yeah.
That you have to be an extraordinarily confident writer and director and actor to like pull off what that movie achieves in terms of its tone.
Still arguably Stuart Gordon's best film.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to top. I mean, he's done a lot of really excellent work. I'm a huge fan, actually, of Dagon, which is an underseen kind of film that he did recently.
That's the other. Wait, am I thinking Dagon or Dagon?
Dagon,
the Lovecraft.
Yeah,
the Lovecraft creature from the Black Lagoon movie.
Yeah.
It looks like Dagon, so what am I supposed to do?
Anyway, even phonetic isn't spelled phonetically, so let's not worry too much about it.
That movie is highly underrated. From Beyond has recently kind of been rediscovered, reissued in an uncut version. Finally,
Thank you, Scream Factory.
Yeah. Scream Factory's doing God's work right now, I have quite a few of those on my shelf as well. I mean, you look at these old films, and then if I see You're Next, certainly if I see A Horrible Way to Die or VHS, I just see like all the things that were like, this special effect failed, so we kind of whip away from it, and you don't really notice, and it was kind of as a kid watching films like that, you know, where they're kind of sometimes having to shoot around something because it looks a little latexy, and if you like, you know, when you see it on Blu-ray years later, you're like, oh my god, these special effects are terrible. It's the Jaws syndrome.
Right, you see the seams a little bit more clearly. When you get in high definition, sometimes you see the strings.
Yeah, when Jaws got like re-released in that like 4K thing or whatever they did, I was like, holy crap, that shark really does look actually very bad. You always hear the legendary stories about how Spielberg was shooting around it, and I was like, what are they talking about? I would love to have an animatronic shark.
Yeah.
Quit whining. And then you see it and you're like, oh man, that looks like paper mache.
No one should ever trust me with an animatronic shark, for the record.
No one should ever trust you.
If it's an option, don't let it happen, no matter how drunk I am.
There's a clause in the One of Us contract that you do not get to operate any animatronic animals.
Is this in danger of happening?
You never know.
We try to cover all the bases when we
You can end up at like a really unique Chuck E. Cheese sometime and just like have a couple pints and be like, you know what, that's coming home with me.
Yeah.
It could happen.
You know what I found out recently is Chuck E. Cheese delivers. Why would anyone do like Chuck E. Like the worst part of Chuck E. Cheese is the pizza,
unless it's an animatronic character who delivers it to you,
or unless you have like a really highly specific phobia, which probably a lot of people do.
I just want them to deliver the hot moms that go to Chuck E. Cheese. Is that I thought maybe that's what they were talking about, but
is that a special kind of pizza?
I don't know.
Okay,
we're filming this at a Chuck E. Cheese right now.
Yeah, with Guinness. Yeah. Let me ask you this. There's a strong element that runs through all your films you've written with Adam of being thrillers and inspired by thrillers, even more than we're sitting here talking about horror, but what thrillers do you feel like were really informative to you as a writer?
I feel like Adam and I try to mash up a bunch of different genres. A big influence on my work was actually The Stepfather, the original film with Terry O'Quinn.
Yeah. Amazing fucking movie.
I love that movie so much.
So good.
And I love it because I actually never even saw the remake, but the sequels to that film, the original Stepfather, are absolutely appalling.
Yeah. They're appalling, but there's a weird sort of like overemphasis on mythology. Like they really try to push the idea of Terry Quinn's character having this like legacy.
If they made one more, he would have been somebody who had read a Lovecraft text at some point.
The second one with the chick from Masters of the Universe, the one with the incredible blue eyes, who was in everything. I can't remember her name, but
the one from They Live.
Maybe. Yeah, she is the one from They Live.
Yeah, he's got those. Yeah, I always wonder if those are contacts or not, because they're too. If you met her at a party or a bar, you would just be like, she could be 300 pounds, and you still wouldn't be able to stop staring into those eyes.
So that one's the second, and then the third one, they actually changed actors, so they came up with this whole storyline where he fell in a wood chipper. And it was like, he had to have his face reconstructed.
I have to look this up. It's Meg something, right?
Meg,
Meg. I turned my phone off.
If you get a chance, look at anything she's in, because it's actually
I don't want to remember who the guy who plays Dr. Carl Hill is in Reanimator, because I definitely got it wrong. It's David...
Something. These are all things we will fact check later.
Surprisingly entertaining sequel to The Reanimator too, which
Bride of Reanimator is excellent.
Yeah.
Bride of Reanimator is absolutely
surprisingly
excellent. Brian Usna is an underrated filmmaker. Return of the Living Dead 3
is much better than 2.
It's one of the best films ever made. It legitimately is one of the best films ever made. Like, you really have to like pay attention to what that movie is doing. I'm a huge fan of the first one, the Dan O'Bannon film, but I mean, the third one is on a it's an art film. It's not playing by any rules that make any sense.
I haven't seen it since it came out, and I remember really liking it. But
I mean, similarly, Society is like straight up like something like Louis Benuel would have made if he like had like a special effects like budget. It feels like.
So are they cutting people's eyes open and stuff? Because
have you seen Society, the Brian Usna film?
Oh yeah.
And she's like the
shit.
I don't want to
talk about practical effects
on VHS.
Yeah, Screaming Mad George.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Okay, what's the name of this guy?
Meg Foster.
Meg Foster.
Meg Foster. That's her name.
So beautiful.
Meg Foster.
Yeah, really very unique actress. I wonder what she's up to now.
I don't know, but we were talking about The Stepfather before we went off on this other tangent.
Well, David Gale. All right. Anyway, sadly deceased. Which is why it was important to me to actually look that up. Not to bring the mood down. Anyway, yes, The Stepfather is a big one. The Hong Kong film Naked Killer is a big one.
That movie.
Yeah,
and I like Naked Killer 2 a lot too. So. I wasn't as good, but it got goofier. But for some level, I still enjoyed it.
Is that Raped by an Angel, Naked Killer 2, or is that 3?
I believe that's 2.
Yeah, Raped by an Angel, and then they did the whole Raped by an Angel series. Which
I love Delta Burke and Raped by an Angel.
What is it with Asian films and rape? I used to have a meme with a anime picture of like, you know, this schoolgirl and a monster on her. It's like, great, it's Japanese for hello.
I remember like Naked Killer 3 was subtitled like The Trials of the Chief Executive or something. I've seen all those films. I mean, I watched so much Hong Kong stuff.
Me too. Well, at least I used to until they became like all CG, all pop stars stuff.
Well, yeah, but like after the China takeover in 1997, that industry definitely had like a turn, and all their, you know, Ringo Lam and Choi Hark and all those guys had emigrated, and you know, it definitely changed, but. Clarence Falk, who directed Naked Killer, was just like a really strange kind of journeyman guy. But that movie is shot and edited in a way that makes zero sense, or should make zero sense. But it works incredibly. I mean, there's no continuity. There's no. I mean, they break the line like so many times. You know, just the camera like whatever side of actors he wants to be on, that's what he's going to cut to. And for some reason in that movie, it just works.
Have you ever seen the Andrew Wong film where he plays a serial killer who runs a steamed bun shop that's serving human meat to his
you're
clients?
Either referring to The Untold Story or Ebola Syndrome.
The Untold Story.
Okay, they kind of did that twice with Ebola Syndrome as well. Ebola Syndrome is really something. I can't in clear conscience recommend it, but it's a film I've seen more than once. The Unknown Story is actually like a real movie.
Yeah.
Herman Yao, I think, directed those films.
Really
interesting, weird guy. I actually have one of Anthony Wong's heavy metal albums. I don't know if you know that. Like
I had no idea.
In Hong Kong, he's like kind of known as like a really angry, explicit musician.
That doesn't really surprise me considering the sort of roles he usually
Incredible
takes.
actor.
That's almost as weird as hearing that Christopher Lee has put out metal albums, which still floors me to no end. But I want to talk about that opening. Yeah, he did. The opening shot in The Stepfather, where he's like he's shaving and he's walking down the stairs.
The reveal that like it's like a crime scene.
And as soon as he hits the bottom of the stairs, it's just like carnage candy as far as the eye can see.
Well, that movie is extraordinary in that it really doesn't do any. There's no like big moments. It's extremely contained. It's basically kind of a drama, just with the subtext that the very first scene tells you that this guy's this crazy serial killer.
Yep.
And therefore everything he does and every dynamic that he's in is automatically interesting.
Right.
And laden with all this suspense. It's that bomb under the table thing, I guess. But I find that film utterly riveting.
And there's a weird quality about it that was unique at the time, I feel, where you were kind of rooting for him to make it work this time. You were like,
totally.
This is the time that you're not going to go crazy and kill your family.
Well, movie likability.
You can do it, man.
Movie likability is an interesting thing, and we play with that a lot because he's the most active character in the film. And he is providing you, the viewer, with a bunch of entertainment, even if maybe you don't like him,
right?
And he's not necessarily moral. You're totally riveted by him. And Terry O'Quinn is just so compelling in that performance,
or any performance.
Yeah, he's a really, really, really gifted actor.
Well, I know that when we were talking about Your Next a few years ago, you said that one of the big influences on that movie was Death Trap. And after you told me that, I went out and sought out that movie, and it's now among my favorites. Sidney Lumet directs the hell out of that movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
One of the early...
I don't remember saying
puzzle. One of the early puzzle...
Well, you did, damn it. I mean, I guess that was an influence.
It's one of the early puzzle films that are so popular now, but where you really, as an audience, have to piece together all these things. What's really happening? What are these characters' real motivations? I love that movie.
It took me until it's funny, the influences that I have are often so unconscious, because as you guys might be figuring out, I watched a ton of stuff, and especially when I was younger, and
we can relate to that.
Growing up in Columbia, Missouri, I just didn't have anything else to do, so I would just go to the Chinese grocery store and pick random VHS tapes off the wall with Chinese writing on them, and just take them home and find out what they were. You could rent them for 20 cents a day, I think.
Wow.
And I learned a little Cantonese actually, so that I could talk to the people there and try to find movies Full Contact and stuff like that.
I love that movie.
And so I watched a bunch of garbage actually, and so sometimes I'll make a movie and then a year later someone will be like, it kind of seemed like Your Next was really influenced by Twitch of the Death Nerve, and I'm just like, oh my god, yeah, I was totally influenced by Twitch of the Death Nerve. I just hadn't seen that since I was 18, but I was totally ripping that off in some ways, in terms of the structure and some of the political ideas.
Sure,
completely. Or someone mentioned the Exterminating Angel, which is the film that Louis Benuel kind of redid it with Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois, and I was like, oh yeah, totally, Exterminating Angel.
I always forget that's such the weirdest remake concept ever. It's really? That's a remake? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the one where rich people can't have dinner. Let's take another swing at that idea. But it's awesome. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm that I've seen more films by Louis Benuel than I have by Sam
Raimi or whatever.
Brian Usna. Paul W.S. Anderson. But at the same time, I have seen all those films, and and it is interesting because you kind of do watch that, and you're like, well, what if this was like a slasher movie? That would be really awesome. So I mean, that did, it's just interesting to kind of, hopefully I've never ripped anything off or stolen an idea. It's more like about, just like discovering long after the fact, like, oh yeah, like I was totally thinking about like The Stepfather when I was like writing that scene.
I mean, I wouldn't say that anything in any of the movies that you and Adam have worked on feel like rip-offs.
No.
Like, if you notice, first of all...
We try really hard to be original,
well, first of all, it's like, it's subversive enough that if it is, in fact, a reference, that you kind of have to think about it. But, like, I never would have made the connection to Death Trap.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I never would have put those pieces together, but now that you mention it, or then that you mentioned it, I went back and watched Death Trap, and I was like, I see the connective tissue, but nothing in Death Trap nothing in Your Next feels ripped off from Death Trap.
No.
Well, the only film that was a conscious influence on Your Next, and the only film that I rewatched to study what it did when I was writing that script is Bring Up Baby.
Really?
Yeah, the movie with the leopard.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So the animal masks is...
It's not I hadn't seen it since film school, and but I remember thinking that it like has this really contained family dynamic, and it builds this like insane comedy climax, which it does. It's really an excellent film in terms of its pacing. So I rewatched that, and I was like, how did they get away with like just jumping? Like every scene is entertaining.
Sure.
And like has a set piece, and I was just like, well, a version of Bring Up Baby that's just like people getting murdered is actually like something I want to do. And then obviously Agatha Christie novel, And Then There Were None.
Sure.
Was a really big influence.
Sure, yeah.
That was one of my favorite books. But we're not here to talk about books.
We can if you want.
Are we at a library?
No.
Wait, is that where we are?
It's too much beer for a library. Although libraries would be more popular if they in fact had beer, I suspect.
I agree with that statement.
They would also be noisier.
Yeah.
I also agree with that statement.
I kind of like libraries and bars just the way they are.
Let's not mix the two.
So, I mean, since we've got you here, and this is still a relatively recent event, like, what is your favorite Harold Ramis film?
In terms of stuff that he's directed, I'd have like one answer, but if you're just talking like...
Well, I mean, directed, written, starred in anything.
Ghostbusters is obviously, like, I rewatched it just a couple weeks ago, because it was like, I think on demand, and I ended up just being completely, every time, that's one of those movies, there's a few movies that just every time you watch them, it's like rediscovering them because they, like, are so original and galvanizing that when you see Ghostbusters as a kid, you just take it, like, that degree of entertainment for granted.
Yeah,
but then you go back to it as an adult, and you're like, nobody was doing anything like this. I mean, the closest analogs I can think of are like, Abbott and Costello films or something. I mean, they took like such an original concept, and that movie, by the way, has a like the fact that when you rewatch that movie, that like the reason the Ghostbusters get shut down is because an evil EPA agent is bothered by the fact that they're keeping an illegal nuclear reactor in the middle of Manhattan, and you watch that now, and you're like, that's totally valid.
Yeah, no, he's
that's
got a valid argument.
That's a real problem.
It's true that man had no dick.
That man had no dick.
But I mean, the guys makes a really good argument that like they are actually very irresponsible and they're going to kill everyone in New York, which ultimately they were the Ghostbusters and they could have pulled it off. But I mean, Ghostbusters is one of those scripts that it's just like if you write a script like that in your lifetime,
you might as well just quit.
I mean, it's like one of those things where it's just like I'm just still to this day in awe of what they achieved. I mean, and he's so great in that film.
He is. I mean, Egon is the role for which he became known.
The timing of the actors in that film, I mean, the comedic timing of all those guys riffing on each other, and Rick Moranis is so good in that movie.
It really is.
I was just watching it and just being like, it feels, that movie is so tight in that it's like this ambitious special effects movie, but at the same time the performances and the dialogue feels very loose. It feels like they're just, I think, naturally hanging out and saying random things that people do, and it's I just can't think of any other film like it. I mean, obviously it's it's Ghostbusters. It's like a really boring answer. It's like, yeah, I'm also a big fan of the Beatles. Their music's pretty good.
Well, it's one of those films that a lot of it is like not just the great writing, but the strength of the chemistry between the leads is so
incredible.
Strong.
Yeah,
it's palpable.
Yeah, and I mean, his performance is just like unbelievably funny in that movie, and his delivery of like certain like really particularly dry lines.
Spores, molds, and fungus.
That is really like So anyway, I just rewatched that, and I hadn't seen it probably in 20 years. Since I was like quite young and watched it obsessively and. I never like watched it as a filmmaker. I'd always just watched it as like a dazzled child, and and it's no less impressive to go back and like see what's notice that like the stop motion animation's a little obvious, but it's still just like unbelievable how those special effects work. And,
yeah, very true. Now let me ask you
and that was a really collaborative film too, and you don't see a lot of that anymore. Like I think Adam and I, and the way we work with like people like Swanberg and other people, like everyone kind of hands off various filmmaking duties. That's how Ghostbusters feels. It feels like they were like, okay, we're gonna write this and we'll star in it and you direct it, and and Bill Murray will be over here just being.
It was
awesome.
just a group of friends.
Yeah, you've got a weird little rat pack of horror.
Yeah, they all kind of produced. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This is tying into a more generic question, but more specific to our discussion. If there was any movie that you could reboot, remake, or do a sequel to, and be involved, you could write it, what would it be?
I have to be really careful with this question because I am potentially involved in some stuff that hasn't been.
Well, don't pick that one.
Don't pick that one then.
And there are kind of like dream projects in a way.
The answer is Buckaroo Banzai, but go ahead.
It's tricky because I tend to think that like the ideal remake is a film that had a great premise, but maybe something about the execution was off, or like for some reason you feel like you could fix it, or it's a film that technology and culturally we've transformed enough that it's that rebooting it is relevant. It's weird to say that off the top of my head, absolutely nothing is coming up but I think it's because I'm working on remakes right now.
So you're focused on those specific films.
Yeah, I'm like very much in like a world. Oh, you know what? I'm lying completely. There's a Hong Kong film. Johnny To produced it. It's called The Longest Night. It stars Wei Ka. It's written by Wei Ka-fei. It stars Tony Leung. I think Tony Leung Chi-wei, not Tony Leung Ka-fei. But and Lau Ching-wan is also the other lead, and it takes place over like 24 hours in Macau.
I have not
It's this
seen
elaborate, really twisty plot. It's really great. Actually, a lot of those early Milky Way films, like The Odd One Dies, The Mission, would be wonderful to remake. And I actually have looked into it, and you can't remake them because no one can figure out who owns the rights.
Yeah.
Because they were written by like 5 people and then like produced by 10 different people, and so like the new Milky Way films you could remake if you wanted to. And in fact, like Roy Lee kind of snatches up that stuff, like with Infernal Affairs becoming The Departed, both of which are great films.
Yeah.
And so so actually when I first met Roy Lee, like one of the first things I started talking to him about was, and this was just randomly at a party in Toronto. This wasn't working on a project, but I do like his work a lot. But I immediately started asking him about these Milky Way films because I knew he would know, and he just if Roy Lee doesn't know how to buy it, I'm out of luck. Because I tried to put my agents on it. I was like, no one knows about this movie, The Longest Night. NITE. It's spelled that way because it's a Hong Kong movie. It came out in like 1998.
So a little past the golden age.
Yeah, but that was the thing. Everything like they shot it in 5 days. It was like a really interesting time for Johnny To because all the other guys had left, and he was still there.
And he's still one of the best guys working out of Hong Kong.
He still can do amazing things. Drug War was really, really good, I thought. I had like a mixed message and some weird tonal shifts, but
it's still
a total
really
blast.
Good.
Yeah. And The Longest Night is similar to Drug War in that it has this really elaborate plot that I would love to like reboot, set it in like Las Vegas or some kind of isolated place. Because there's no, it's hard to find the American equivalent of what Macau is. Not that I've been to Macau or China or Hong Kong or anywhere really, but my understanding is Macau is kind of geographically isolated a little bit, and that plays into the plot.
Set in Columbia, Missouri. That's pretty isolated.
I think we've played Columbia out. I mean, it's not that we're not welcome back. But I mean, it's I think people are a little tired of us. I'll go back to like True False and to see my mom.
Sure.
But I don't think I can make another movie in Columbia. Also, explaining how Columbia is geographically isolated and how it's would be so difficult. And it's like, no, it's really hard to get like a red camera there. And people would be like, this isn't that interesting compared to Macau, where you like have to get like a boat to like leave.
I was actually just in Hong Kong. I got to tour Shaw Brothers Studios.
Oh man.
Yeah, kind of a dream come true.
Yeah, I've been revisiting a lot of those as they kind of come out, and yeah, I rewatched 36 Chambers the other day.
Oh god, I love that movie so much. That one too.
That movie is incredible, and I've trained in martial arts for many years.
No kidding. What styles?
Southern Shaolin Kung Fu, so the 5 Animal style, Art Wong's 5 Family style. I have black belt degrees in Kempo Karate. Shaolin Kung Fu and Lima Lama.
Wow.
So I've been training at the school that I'm at. I've been at for like 12, 13 years now. But like if you're a martial arts student, that movie is like, there's not a single martial arts student in the world that doesn't love that movie.
Oh yeah.
The whole him just like having to stand in stances pointlessly for like hours and hours. And
I'm kind of weird in that of all those early Shaw Brothers, one of my favorites is Mad Monkey Kung Fu.
Oh, Mad Monkey Kung Fu's great.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, that movie's incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah, I got really, really. Adam is also extremely knowledgeable about early, I mean, there's all kinds of great eras of Hong Kong cinema, but yeah, the Shaw Brothers movies. But what I love is the really weird Shaw Brothers horror movies, like Seedling of a Ghost and the Boxer's Omen.
Yeah,
and then you get
Omen is bizarre.
Boxer's Omen is really a unique motion picture.
I still have no idea what's going on in that movie.
I mean, that movie is clinically insane.
Horror comedy
it's
thing
so good,
that started happening in Hong Kong, though, towards into the 80s and early 90s with the Chinese ghost stories and Encounters of a Spooky Kind.
Yeah.
And, what was the one with the zombies in a mall?
Biozombie. Yeah, that's a depressing one. That's a weird one. But, and the Mr. Vampire series and stuff.
God,
but, I mean, it's those movies are just daffy and really intriguing, but then you watch Gremlins or Big Trouble in Little China, and you see that filmmakers in the 80s were being influenced by those films as they were happening, because they were doing completely innovative things.
Sure.
Not always successfully. But really,
a little, as you said before, put together by spit and gum and tape.
Yeah, there's also a Hong Kong movie called The Cat, which is a really not great film. I think Simon Yam's the star or something, but there's a 10-minute fight scene between a dog and a cat in the middle of the movie. Where the cat, this alien
cat wins, right?
I can't remember what the deal is. It's like an alien cat or a haunted cat, and it goes into a junkyard, and this big Rottweiler comes out, and the cat kicks it, and it's done in they'll just be sticking a cat leg into the frame, and it's hitting the dog in the face, and they dub in a noise as they yank the dog. I mean, it's so good. It's one of my favorites.
The cat fighting human style.
It's one of my favorite. Oh yeah, I mean, but it's again, there's no digital special effects. It's just they kind of throw a cat puppet at the dog and cut at exactly the right frame before you completely start laughing.
And the sort of stuff that clearly influenced people like Peter Jackson.
Yeah,
that sort of sense of humor.
And Peter Jackson.
Ridiculous filmmaking.
Peter Jackson was kind of. It seems like he was kind of also he's just one of these weird geniuses. So it's it's hard to even know what inspired him to make Meet the Feebles. Obviously the Muppet Show, but but where did that level?
Well, the Muppets and drug addiction.
Yeah, I was gonna say I felt like he left a Russ Myers film on the same time he was watching the Muppet Show, and they fused somehow.
But he's the nicest guy in the world. He's been with his partner for decades. And
helped get the what do you call those 3 kids who were put in jail for murder.
West Memphis 3.
And the awesomest thing about him doing that is that he didn't advertise it.
No.
He just did it, and then then he was and here's this documentary because I've been doing this for a while. He just found out about them and just was well, I'm rich, I'll do this, but I'm not going to do a press release.
Right.
So many celebrities would have been look at me. Peter Jackson just was this is an injustice. I'll finance their legal.
Yeah, Sean Penn's you're not advertising enough, bro.
To be fair, Eddie Vedder was in fact doing that while that was going on. Look at me, I'm supporting the West Memphis 3.
Yeah.
Rhymes.
Yeah, Eddie Vedder is really sad about his father. Also, I seem to remember.
A man who wears broken.
Man, I don't like Pearl Jam.
I'm not a fan. I was wait, you moved from LA to Seattle to be the defining Seattle band?
I'm sure Eddie Vedder, I'm sure all those guys are perfectly nice, but
sure
that was a kind of dark time for music for me.
I got Mother Love Boned.
We're down to the dregs of our pints, so to close this out, so tell us
before I disparage any further.
No, I don't give a shit about that. But before we go, tell us a couple films that maybe people should watch to get them in the right mindset for the guest. Since we can't talk about the guest specifically, what are a couple films that people might want to track down and watch before they see the guest?
I mean, the number two the two that Adam always says, and he's right, are the original Halloween and the Terminator. If you do it the inspiration for the guest, and again can't really talk about it, but came from Adam inadvertently doing a double feature of those 2 films, and then rushing to my apartment to be I have this idea, and I was I have this other idea, and they kind of go together. And,
oh, nice.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Halloween and Terminator.
So Michael Myers as a killer robot from the future.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
So part 6.
Sure.
Yeah,
it does seem inevitable.
Who knows what I was influenced by? Like, probably like Stop Loss or something. I think no one said.
Gone with the Wind.
In the Valley of Allah, or like one of those movies.
Good lord, you're just dragging them out of.
I
forgot about that movie.
There was this era where like everyone was making these like PTSD kind of Iraq War movies, and everyone in America wasn't seeing them.
Yeah,
but I saw them.
Yeah, I was a film critic, so I saw all that.
I saw them all. I think they weren't bad, you know. Like
some were bad.
It's just like literally America didn't want to know about that to the extent that they didn't want to hear news
about it. They didn't want to watch it either.
They certainly weren't going to go to the multiplex and pay like $25 on their one night a week off.
Also, I would say that one of the greatest victims of that was United 83.
United 93.
93, which is a
that did actually all right. That did all right. That wasn't a flop. Though.
A lot of people still stayed away from it in droves because like it's too soon, and it's a shame because it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's good. You know, I don't know though. I felt like that was still a success. Like Paul Greengrass, I know really benefited from that film. You know, and you know, I know that movie was like critically taken very seriously.
Yeah.
Mainly because it just managed to not be offensive, which actually is fairly admirable.
So we managed to talk about the West Memphis 3 and 9/11 and all kinds of cheery, upbeat topics.
And the history of horrible things in martial arts.
But Simon, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us.
Yeah, real pleasure.
Thanks. All right. Great.
This is Oneofus.net.
Put on the glasses.